everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, gracias. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to the video to help the message get out there a little better. Thank you. Well, everyone, getting into what I want to speak about with you today. Today is going to circle about the big dilemma, right? What's been up for discussion ever since the incident happened with MS and the feds. And it's basically, I understand there's a lot of people that don't get how MS from Califas is viewed different than MS in the feds. There is camaradas in the feds, but they're right sureño. And there's also that faction that claims Ranfla Nacional. They don't consider themselves sureños. But anyways, that conflict ain't new. It's been happening for a long time. Mostly out here in Mexico, right? But anyways, I thought I would share a personal story with you with some individuals that I met and rubbed elbows with in Mexico, right? This is 2020 again, 21. No, 21. We had just gotten out of Becarranza. I remember we had came back to Culiacan, and as we're here, there's a good camarada that's from MS that he needed some help, some support, right, from us. Keep in mind, in Mexico, there's numerous of camaradas, from MS. Just off the top of my head, a lot of people know about Mula, right, and Tijuas. But anyways, I'm not gonna put this camarada's name on there for obvious reasons. You guys always know. But anyways, his right hand man was the homie Puppet from MS. We had a lot of distrust, to be sincere, with them, but nevertheless, we're being sent. So this was just an old camarada mission, About 15 of us went, and just two Billies decided to go with us, right? Which was O and Richie. Mono wanted to stay behind for whatever reasons, but anyways, we would end up getting into this rancho in Veracruz, right? That man, it was beautiful. The ranch was nice, right? It was called Acula or something to that effect. But the whole municipio is called the same too, right? But anyways, we'll get up in this rancho and we will get met by these two camaradas, right? And the older camarada, he would end up introducing us with Puppet, and they were female individuals. If you ever been around camaradas from MS, they have their stilo, right? Nevertheless, they're uh, they're good homies. So, anyways, as we're there, the problem that was happening is, the older homie. he was well set with the Maña, with the faction that had that part of Veracruz. So he was in charge of the whole municipio. You know, it, it spoke a lot about him, to be sincere, to be down there and to have a lot of opposites from his own neighborhood and to be given not just a town, the whole municipio. I don't know exactly how many towns the municipio has, but there are always at least 10, right? And he was in charge of everything. Again, his right hand man was the homie Puppet, which I will get to know real good, right? For the time we were there. And basically, me just being just fishing, right? I just wanted to know where I was at, where the homies were at, not just for me, but for all the camaradas that were there. The two Pilis, they got there, they threw their feet up in the air and they took their place, right? Anyways, we would start conversating, and I guess Puppet and the other homie, they had done some time, right? In Calipat, I forgot what year, but it was in Calipat during the shoes. And the older homie had been kicked out the shoe, and they became close. They happened to be Mexican from the same state, claiming MS, you know, so they were gonna come out this way regardless. They would end up selling up and making their way out here, right? And the older homie, to be sincere, he got his start by the old man, right? Daryl gave him a start right there in Veracruz, because right there it was not just Sam, but Bouncer was there and a few camaradas, right? Doing their thing. But anyhow, we would get down to what was the problem. Because again, we were just pointers, regardless of where we went or how good the individuals had it there, right? We're we're strangers. We stood out big time, especially if we stood in the town. Literally, usually we got a couple things together and vámonos, you know, grabbed whatever we needed to grab. If you guys get it, and hit the cerro, right? Go uphill and just stay up there till it was time to boogie. But there was no sense in this case because the homie again had it sold up. You guys know how Mexico works. When you have something sold up, you literally have judiciales, municipales, estatales, or you have government on your side, right? But it didn't take it from the people in town, right? And anyways, that's besides the point, right? I remember one day we want to make something to eat, and I'm speaking with Puppet, and I asked him like, "Hey, so what's the problem here?" Remember his girl was there. They used to call her Pitufa, or yeah, Pitufa, and she was a rowdy one. Sincerely, she was a rowdy girl. But that's the camarada's lady, so it was with all due respect, it was basically she tried to butt in a lot, but I didn't shine her. I just directed my conversation with Puppet, out of respect. And anyways, what was happening is that the Ranfla Nacional from MS, they started working with the Zetas, right? With the last letter, and they were starting to go into the municipio that the homie was in. So basically, since the municipio of Acula belonged to Sinaloa, he needed help basically to push them out, you know. So we basically would end up going to the edge of the municipio. Remember, we hit a mountain and we stood up there for 2 weeks, I believe, right? And we didn't take really nothing. I remember we just took pan bimbo, a couple pan bimbos, and some atunes and some stuff like that that was in cans, right? That we could slap on in a pan bimbo and just maintain, right? We didn't take no blankets, none of that. It was just wait, because that's where they were supposed to be coming in from. Well, it took 2 weeks, you know, and Puppet was with us. The older homies was with us. But what surprised me was Puppet's girl was with us. She had a chingo of, excuse my language, of girls ready to boogie. We're not speaking about a girl that just plays a part, right? With a cuete, nah. They were suited and booted and had the right toys, right? And they were willing. Again, not to sound scandalous, but we're having a lot of problems with mess. So I'm not gonna say I distrusted the homies, but I never took that feeling away that it was a setup, you know. And it was dumb on myself because when you're specifically out here in Mexico, you're out doing something. If you don't stay focused on what you need to do, that's how you get clipped, you know. But it was just one of them things. And anyways, 2 weeks passed by, and some individuals went into this small town, literally on the entrance, right? And they started trying to charge quota. That's what the Zetas were doing a lot to fund their movement. They were kidnapping for ransom. I mean, even if you didn't have money, you know, they would take your kids, try to clip you for whatever you had. You know, them cats from a mess. You know, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but they were abusing little girls, whatever got in their way, you know, and taking them out. They have a different mentality, you know. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but at least in this case, it just looked like that, right? And Zetas and them were charging quotas. They were going in the stores or whatever, you know, from now on, this belongs to the Zetas. I'm gonna come by every day and you're gonna pay me so much every day. And they would do that literally with as many people as they could. And if they didn't budge, they would take them out. You know, they would keep their word. So again, we're in the hills, right? So we're hearing this by someone that's going back and forth. So it was time to boogie, you know, just to go down there and see if we could put a stop to it. You know, the older homie from my man's, he had a lot of people, and again, it was just us, you know, that were willing to back them up. Well, we weren't, it wasn't really a choice, right? We were sent there to do so. And we would end up running in, and it was basically a dumb decision. You know, they were supposed to be camped out in this motel. So we would end up going into this motel and just, you can imagine, right? Just all hell broke loose. And they never told us who was going back and forth. That hotel was just one of the places they were at. There was just a gang of them, from both factions. MS and Zetas, you could tell them apart because the dudes from MS, they weren't being treated right by Zetas, you know. They weren't given the proper tools to pull their work, but they were given a banger and stuff, right? And anyways, we would end up being stuck. We rushed in, we took care of, I don't know, a few people, and we were stuck. Basically, we were stuck, receiving it from pretty much every angle. And I remember the people that came down with us from Culiacan, we would end up losing five homies, you know. And I'll say, with all the respect, rest in peace, Pelon from Harbor City, Malo from San Pedro, the homie Scrappy from South Central. Excuse me, I forgot what clique he was from in South Central, but he was from South Central. You know, the homie from East Los, from Little Valley, Tortuga or Turtle, and the homie from Los Primos in LA, the homie Looney. May him rest in peace. Again, we got caught off guard. We just didn't get told the correct information. It's just one of them things, right? That needs to get dealt afterwards. The whole thing of the mission is now is to get out of there, to be sincere, and it's a funny story because at the end of the day, the homie Puppet stood behind with the hyenas, and I swear to you, them hyenas were with the business. They came in and they opened up an avenue for us to get out, and eventually we would end up at least pushing them back, right? And there was a gang of losses, not just the five I just mentioned, but a lot of people underneath the old man from MS and Puppet and his hyena and his girls. We lost a lot of individuals, but it was just one of them things, that honestly it was God. We were trapped. And have you ever been in those situations and ain't like you got options? You hold your ground and vámonos, and you start seeing people around you fall and start falling and getting clipped. And, you know, at least me, it's like I was in a internal fight with God. So It was like whatever, vámonos. And then here comes this hyenas that at one point, I'm honest, I was judging. Serio, I was judging even Puppet and the homie for having them in a team like that. But they held their ground. They were savage. We got out of there because of them, and again, it was the last letter's fault because they didn't give the proper tools to these individuals because they would have took care of us. If they had what they needed, they would have took care of us. No buts or ifs, you know. But all they had is a type of toy, whatever, from a handgun to a R15 or whatever it might be, but they weren't suited, right? And they were wild. They didn't have no training. They were just wild. I'm not taking nothing from them, but they were pretty much easy picking. And at the end of the day, we just took care of that hotel, and the hyenas basically took care of the rest. But this older homie and Puppet are known for this. They ain't in Veracruz no more, but they do hold a strong position here in Sinaloa. If you guys are aware of my story, the last place I was in, the last place I hit the prison shot, they're holding it there. The reason I don't say the older man's name is because he's not out there like that. And to answer them questions, is there other members besides Cisco made? Yeah, the homie shortly after he got made into the clica, without mentioning Mula and two others in the feds. Cisco is back on track. You know, they took him off the shelf. He's in goods again. But anyways, I had not shared a story with you about here in Mexico. We would end up leaving, and this is gonna sound messed up, but I just want you guys to get the real feeling of how it was out here, right? Whenever we went out there, I mentioned the five homies, and I hope they're resting in peace. But in incidents like this, we couldn't take them with us. I know it sounds scandalous. They were homies, camaradas, but we were all well aware that if we fall in line, we weren't gonna be dead weight. We were gonna be left there. In my case, it was what it was, right? If I was gone, there is no point, right? I don't want to be a dead weight on you, so just go. But the homie stayed there, laid there till Mexican government picked them up, and I don't know what they do with the bodies, right? And it's sad because they were camaradas, but we weren't like close like that to know their families, to even get at them and let them know. To them, it was just a son, a brother, somebody that got lost in the wiggles of Mexico. And there is a lot of camaradas like that. And and for the lies that always get told to brainwash is the reason why I'm telling my story. in the hopes, I don't want nobody, if you're there boogieing, boogieing. But if you're not, and you have someone in your oreja trying to brainwash you, you're able to see things for what they are. You're able to enjoy life. You're able to stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones.